for today. We are going to continue our free agency prediction series. And today we are going to be doing offensive linemen and interior defensive linemen. There are a ton of lineman free agents and the interior D lineman free agents, so we're not going to get through all of them, but I tried to pick about the top guys at each position. So tackles, guards, centers, and D tackles pretty much are what we're going to be going over today. Before we get into the video, make sure to leave a like if you enjoy, comment down below your opinions, and as always, really helps the channel if you subscribe. You don't want to miss more content as we move on through the NFL offseason. But without further ado, let's get into our free agency predictions for the linemen and interior D linemen. The first player we have is Tyron Smith. Now, he very well could retire this season, but I'm going to do this prediction as if he's not going to retire. I do think he will leave the Jets, though. I think they're just going to move on. And a team that I think could, they have somewhat of a decent amount of salary cap. A team who's trying to contend. A team who could use just a veteran tackle because they need help on the O-line is the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, he's not going to be, obviously, their franchise tackle or anything, but they have the money. That cap obviously went up by a ton. I think by like 20% this offseason. He's not going to want that much money, I wouldn't assume. So you get him for a nice 1-year veteran guy just to help that O-line room, help your young guys like Amarius Mims develop as well. But I also think he very well could retire too. Next is Alaric Jackson, a young up-and-coming guard who had a very good season last year with the Rams. However, the Rams, they have about $40 million. I don't know if the numbers I'm looking at account for the $20 million raise. I don't think so, but the Rams have a decent amount of money, so they could bring him back. However, I feel like the Rams are gonna get outbidded by a team with a lot of money who potentially is in a better situation than the Rams. Because although the Rams could compete next season, Matthew Stafford seems like he's not going to be their quarterback, and they might roll with Jimmy Garoppolo next season. So I don't think they're going to compete maybe next year, and I could see Jackson going to a team ready to compete with a lot of money, and one of those teams that could use guard play, because although this team did spend some money on the offensive guard position, they weren't any crazy signings in my opinion, and that is the Washington Commanders. They have the third most salary cap in the league. They are in a much better position to compete than the Rams, especially if the Rams trade Stafford. And I think they'll just be able to outbid the Rams. I could see him going back to the Rams due to the amount of money they do have. But I do think if the Commanders throw him a big offer, I think he will take that deal and leave the Rams. Similar situation here with Dan Moore Jr., another young guard, I believe entering his, this is his first offseason off his rookie contract. Pittsburgh, another team that does have the money to retain him. And while I don't think the spot I have him going to isn't a team that is necessarily ready to contend quite like the Commanders are, they have even more money than the Commanders. And that's the New England Patriots. Although I do like the idea of them taking a guy like Will Campbell in the draft and other linemen. First of all, Campbell's a tackle, and free agency happens first. And I could really just see the Patriots spending a ton of money on the O-line or receiver or both. They might go into this offseason with $150 million in cap. So I could see them spending big time on a young guy like Dan Moore Jr. and either force Pittsburgh to pay him a lot of money or let him walk. And I think the Patriots give him a lot more money, and I think he goes to New England. Next player is Cam Robinson. He was traded to the Vikings mid-season at the deadline last year, and he didn't play bad, but I'm pretty sure he got injured in a game late in the year. He might have came back. I'm not 100% sure. But he's a very good player, very good tackle. They traded for him for a reason. Part of that is because they were dealing with injury at the offensive tackle position. But he's still a good player. They still traded for him, and they didn't even really get to see the full potential that he could have. Christian Darrisaw, that's the name. Their young, really, really good tackle got hurt last year, so they traded for him. But he's still very good, and I actually could see the Vikings bringing him back. I also could see him leaving because they have Brian O'Neill and they have um they have their tackle position set, but I could see them bringing him back because although you do have Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill's on. I don't know if they're gonna bring Brian O'Neill back. I don't know if they like what they saw with their tackles. So I like Cam Robinson coming back to the Vikings. But this isn't like I'm not very confident in this guy. You could easily see him leaving. Next is Ronnie Stanley, a long-time veteran tackle for the Ravens. And while the Ravens don't have a ton of money, I do think they will make it work and bring back Ronnie Stanley. They don't have a lot on that O-line, at least on the tackles. Like, it's a big need potentially for them in the draft. So I think when you have a guy who's been as consistent as Stanley has, who's coming off one of his best seasons he has had as a Raven in the NFL, I think it's a no-brainer to bring him back, especially if you obviously have the money to. They don't have the most money, so we'll see. But I definitely think they'll want to bring him back, and I think they'll make it work. However, our next guy, James Daniels, moving into the guards, seems like he will not be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers next season. Seems like it is a very likely outcome that he leaves. Now, who knows if they let a guy like him and Dan Moore walk? I think they're just going to get outbid for Dan Moore, and I just think they're going to let James Daniels leave. And one team that they've been competitive, but they had sort of a disappointing season due to some injuries last year. They need help on the O-line. They could use guard help when it comes to that O-line. They don't have a ton of money, but I don't think James Daniels is going to, get paid this massive contract for a guard. Is the Miami Dolphins. They lost a guy like Robert Hunt last year in free agency who had a great season with the Panthers, and they definitely need help at that guard position. I think they have the money to pay a guy like James Daniels. He seems like he's not going to play for Pittsburgh. I like this match for him in Miami because you need to protect Tua. You need to keep Tua upright because when Tua's healthy, that Dolphins offense can be very good. So I like them getting him some help, but not, necessarily spending a ton because they don't really have a ton to spend. Next guy up is Kevin Zeitler from the Lions. I think this is pretty clear that they bring him back, in my opinion. They have a ton of money. Their offensive line has been so good and so consistent for so long under the Dan Campbell era. I think there's no reason to let him leave. And I don't think he's going to cost. He's not going to be paid like the top guards, but even if he is, they have the money. It's the strength of their team. I don't see a reason why they let him go. Next guy up is Tevin Jenkins. Now, the Bears have been rumored to spend money on the guard position. And who knows, they could even spend a lot of money on the center position as well, because they could use help at that position too. And they do have a ton of money. They have the fourth highest salary cap, the fourth most cap space going into this free agency. And I think Ben Johnson in an interview said that he wants to invest a lot in the offensive line, mainly the interior. So maybe that's Tevin Jenkins, but I think they're going to look elsewhere when it comes to the guard position. And I think Tevin Jenkins not only is going to be a sacrifice of that, but I think he's going to get paid more than the Bears are willing to pay him. So I think they will let him walk. And I don't think it's going to be by necessarily a contender. I think it's going to be by maybe a lesser, a team towards the bottom who has the money to pay a young, promising guard with still good potential, in my opinion. And I think that team is the New York Giants. They have the 12th most cap space. They could desperately use help on that guard position. They pretty much just have Andrew Thomas, and that's pretty much it. Tevin Jenkins also has experience, I think, playing tackle. I don't know if that's college they played tackle or if he's played tackle in the NFL. Because outside of, again, Andrew Thomas, they don't have anything else. But Tevin Jenkins has been recently a guard. He's a pretty good, young, promising guard. I think the Giants will be willing to spend more money on him than the Bears will. I think the Bears are going to shoot at bigger names when it comes to the O-line position. Next guy is Will Fries from the Colts. The Colts have two big O-linemen free agents with him and Ryan Kelly. Just like the Lions, the Colts, they don't have nowhere near as much money as the Lions. But just like them, they've had such a good, consistent O-line for so long that it feels weird for them to break it up. And I think they maintain and retain their guy, Will Fries. I don't see why you let him leave. Jonathan Taylor had one of his best seasons. And it's just been a really good O-line for so long. You have other needs on defense. I don't think you want to worry about having to replace him. So I think they bring him back. And I'll skip a little bit to we still have some guards. But speaking of the Colts, their guy Ryan Kelly, center. I think the longest tenured Colt right now. I also think the Colts bring him back. I think that's going to be their big priority this free agency period, is just bringing back their two guys at the O-line position. And then they can use the draft to fill out maybe some of their defensive holes. Maybe get a tight end, whatever. But I think they just retain their O-lineman here. Don't think they try and do anything else really much. Back to the guards. Trey Smith, probably the biggest name O-lineman free agent. Now, there's been a lot of speculation of where he could go. However, he did just recently, I think it might have been today, the Chiefs just franchise tagged him to like a 1-year, $25 million deal. That does not mean he can't play for a different team than the Chiefs, because when they franchised L'Jarius Sneed, they traded him to the Titans, where he got his long-term deal. So he still could leave. However, whether it's this season or not, just kind of like what I said with T. Higgins, I think he stays on the Chiefs. I don't think he leaves. They have so much need on the O-line, they can't let a guy like Trey Smith walk, in my opinion. So I think they retain him. And even if he leaves next year, I think he plays this next NFL season with the Chiefs. Next guy is Austin Corbett from the Panthers. Panthers have an okay amount of money, not a ton. They have expressed interest in wanting to bring him back. And he has had a lot of injury issues over the last year or two, so I don't think his market is going to be the highest. I don't think he's going to get paid a ton from other teams. I don't think he's going to draw a ton of interest. So I do think the Panthers will be able to bring him back if they want for a relatively decent price. And since their O-line was so good last year, I don't think they want to mess too much up with it. So I do think they bring back Austin Corbett on a relatively decent price. Our last lineman of the video is Drew Dahlman, probably the best center on the free agent market from the Atlanta Falcons. I know a lot of the linemen I've had stay with their team. I don't think that's going to be the case with Drew Dalman, mainly because the Falcons don't have a lot of money, and Drew Dalman is going to want a lot of money. He's going to want to get paid. He deserves to get paid. He's one of the better centers in the league. And the Falcons, that Kirk Cousins contract, because even if they get rid of him, they're going to have to pay him that money. And I don't think they're going to have the money to outbid teams like the Patriots or the Bears or the Commanders or even the Cardinals or the Vikings. I just don't think they'll be able to outbid these teams that need centers with a ton of money. And a team that kind of missed out on some of the top guys earlier in this video is the Chicago Bears. I haven't seen this connection at all. Really just seen the Bears want Trey Smith. But if they miss out on Trey Smith because the Chiefs retain him, they still need help on the center, at the center position. And you could easily, if you're the Bears, outbid the Falcons. You have so much more money than the Falcons do. Falcons haven't, they've been pretty good, but I think the Bears could be better than the Falcons next season. I think Drew Dalman would take the money that the Bears can offer, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does leave. And I like the Bears as a fit for him. Moving on to the defensive tackles, we're probably going to go over these guys a little quicker. First guy, T.R. Tart, had a breakout season with the Chargers. Chargers have a lot of money, 6th most cap space. I don't see why he leaves the Chargers. He's just a good D tackle for him. And he had his best season with them. I just don't see why they let him leave. He's not going to want or get a ton of money, I don't think. So I think they can easily bring him back. So I think he stays. Osa Odigozua, I think is how you say it. Great season for the Cowboys last year. Cowboys, unlike the Chargers, do not have a ton of money. But I think I saw a report that they are working on a deal. And I don't think, just like T.R. Tart, but better, I don't think they let a guy like him leave. I also think he stays with the Cowboys. And he gets that deal done that seems to be in the works right now. Next one is Calais Campbell from the Dolphins. Dolphins have the 23rd most cap space, so maybe they get outbid by a team. There are reports that if they were eliminated from the playoffs, they were going to let him play for a Super Bowl contender. Didn't end up happening. Honestly, I think he stays with the Dolphins. He's I don't even know how old he is, like 36. He's 35 plus for sure. So I just don't feel like he's going to ask for a lot. And I think they will be able to bring him back for a solid price. Next is B.J. Hill from the Bengals. Now, although the Bengals do have a lot of money, I feel like they might end up letting a guy like B.J. Hill walk. And a team that could use help on that at the D tackle position, a team that still has a lot of money, that I could very well see swooping in here and sort of stealing B.J. Hill, is the San Francisco 49ers. I don't hear a lot about them. Obviously, they're all caught up in the Deebo Samuel talks. But they need help at the D tackle position. They have the money to go after a cheaper guy like B.J. Hill, who's just a quality player. So I like the fit for him on the Niners. Next is Levi Onwuzurike. Apologies if I mispronounced that. Was on the Lions this most recent season. And while the Lions do have a lot of money, I already had them bringing back Kevin Zeitler. They could spend money at other positions. And I don't think D tackle might not be the top of their priorities. And I don't think they're going to end up bringing him back. And a team who could use a D tackle that was previously mentioned in the video is the Bengals. I think they lose a guy like B.J. Hill, but then they go in and get a minor upgrade in Levi. Great season with the Lions, and I think the Lions unfortunately have to lose somebody, and it might be Mr. Levi Onwuzurika. Last free agent D lineman is Milton Williams from the Eagles. Now, the Eagles are in a tough position here because they don't have a ton of money, and they have top free agents like Josh Sweat. They have Zach Bond, Milton Williams are three of the top guys. It's going to be hard for them to re-sign all three of those guys, especially when Zach Bond had an insane career year. Josh Sweat was insane in the Super Bowl. Milton Williams was just a really good player for the Eagles. All three of them are going to want a ton of money and deserve a ton of money. And I just don't think they'll be able to bring all three of those guys back. And considering they have Jalen Carter, considering they have Jordan Davis, even though he hasn't, been the best of what maybe we thought he could be, I think Milton Williams might be a guy they end up having to sort of sacrifice and let walk. I think they were going to prioritize Zach Bond, then Josh Sweat, then Milton Williams. So I do think he's going to get a bigger contract from a different team that has a ton of money that could use D-tackle, and one of those is the Minnesota Vikings. They need help at that position, and they have the 7th most cap space, and I think they're still a contender, so he's still going to a good team, and I think I think the Eagles will unfortunately have to let him walk, and I like his fit on Minnesota. Last guy, not a free agent, but has been given to seek a trade, and he is still very good. Jonathan Allen from the Commanders, and he could go to a team like the Vikings, but if they sign Milton Williams, I doubt they trade for Jonathan Allen. He could go to like the Chargers or maybe even a team like the Bengals, or who knows, maybe even the Bears. But a sneaky team that I like for Jonathan Allen, that is still a competitive team. They have a ton of money to take on his contract or give him a contract or whatever. That could, again, use help at that D-tackle position is the Arizona Cardinals. I know they're not the top-end team like, the Chargers or the Vikings or something like that. Cardinals are still a good team. And I kind of like that fit for Jonathan Allen on the Cardinals. That will conclude our lineman and interior D lineman free agency predictions. Again, let me know in the comment section your opinions, your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. And as always, please hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot. And you don't want to miss more content during this NFL offseason as we work our way through free agency and the draft. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn the notification bell on so you're notified when more videos come out. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.